The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
Welcome from the General Assembly and the City of Richmond. I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports and Comcast. Please welcome two special guests from Southside Virginia, Delegate Danny Marshall. Good to see you, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Delegate Don Merricks. Good
morning,
to see
Woody.
you again.
Thank you.
Well, I know jobs and the economy are still big issues for both of you from Southside. I noticed this morning that real estate values in Henry County have gone down significantly, and it puts the County Board of Supervisors in a tough position.
It sure does. I read that article as well, and it's unfortunate, but it's really signs of the times. Everybody's values have gone down, and Henry County is no exception. But things are picking up in the Martinsville-Henry County area. Faneuil just announced expansion with 100 new jobs. And I know that little by little, but slowly we're getting there. We still have the highest unemployment in the state, unfortunately, in the Martinsville area, and that's just unacceptable. But we're doing our best to attract industry to that area, but we're trying really hard.
Well above the statewide average of 5.6%, the unemployment rate in your district, I take it.
Yeah, absolutely, Woody. You know, I have said, all my years here that I'd like to just get to the state average in our area. So if we're making some progress, and it certainly is down from years in the past. We got a long ways to go. We're making some slight movements forward. But we also are having some handcuffs put on us on a federal level also.
Now, some of those handcuffs relate to coal, I take it, and the issues around that.
No, the issues that we're referring to is that we're building two industrial parks. One in Henry County called Commonwealth Crossings down on Route 220 right at the Virginia-North Carolina line. And then we have a site over in Pennsylvania County. It's called Berry Hill. That's a joint industrial park between the city of Danville and Pennsylvania County. It's 3,500 acres of land. It's the largest tract of land in the state of Virginia, and it's the fifth largest on the East Coast. It's considered a mega site. Both of those sites, we want to grade a pad-ready site. So when a customer comes in, it's like at the top of that table right there, it's ready to start. We've got all the permits except for the Corps of Engineers. The Corps of Engineers will not allow the permit to move forward at this time because they claim that there are waters of the Commonwealth on that site. And if you and I would go out there on a sunny day, you and I would call them a ditch. And that's what they look like, is a ditch. And if there's no water in the Commonwealth on sunny days. And so what the Corps of Engineers says that they do not want to allow speculative development. If a company comes in and says, we want that site, then they will grant the permit to a grade. It didn't work that way in economic development. When projects come in, they want to go. Caterpillar looked at locating in our area. We didn't have a site ready for them to move in. They had one that had been graded in Georgia. That had been graded for a few years, and they moved in, and now they've employed close to 1,000 people at good-paying jobs. And so it's everything we're trying to do to get jobs going. It's kind of really frustrating, to see the federal government put those handcuffs on us when we're trying to do what we need to do.
And of course, these are some of the things that, as a member of the General Assembly, you try to get rid of, at least at the state level, these burdensome rules and regulations.
We try real hard, but we don't have much control with the federal government. They do a lot of talking the talk, but they don't do a lot of walking the walk. And when you get down to the nitty-gritty, we need them to stand aside and let us go about our business, but they tend to like to take control over everything we try to do. But on the state level, we try to put in policies and procedures and regulations that encourage growth and encourage job growth. And we do that through workforce development. We do that through the community colleges. We do that through all the bills we try to pass on the House side deal with jobs and job creation, but we just can't seem to get a lot of help out of the federal government.
Now, is the Tobacco Commission still a significant source of assistance in terms of job creation?
I don't think there's been one economic development announcement in our area that hadn't had Tobacco Commission help. where it goes, like the new college up in Martinsville that they want to build a new facility, all the way down to Danville, all the way down to South Boston, all the way down to Emporia. Everywhere you go where there's any type of economic development going on, the Tobacco Commission has a hand in it.
And the Tobacco Commission that you are a member of, Delegate, has been in existence for some time and has helped the economy in Southside significantly.
Yeah, absolutely. Don and I both are members of the Tobacco Commission, and you know, it was formed back when the Attorney Generals of the U.S. sued the tobacco companies. The state of Virginia did something really unique, and if the people watching this show, if they see Senator Charles Hawkins or either then Delegate Whit Clement, pat them on the back, because the state of Virginia took half of that money and started the Tobacco Commission. No other state in the Union did exactly what Virginia did, and so it has made significant changes. You know, we have something we started called the Mid-Atlantic Broadband, where we have high-speed fiber up and down Route 58, up and down 29, up and down 220. We have some of the high-speed fiber in the nation, and that has helped us get jobs. You know, it's not the only reason we get jobs, but it is one of the main things. So, you know, like the two industrial sites that I've mentioned, the Tobacco Commission funded. We hope to fund the grading on both of those sites, and we also hope to fund when a company comes in. We'll help them also.
Now, what about electric utility rates? Have they calmed down over the past year or two?
I'm going to yield to my friend here to the left. He has a bill this year.
Yeah, things are getting better with the electric utility. They're stabilizing. And we did put a bill in this year. I had a bill in. It got rolled into Delegate Kilgore's bill where it would allow Appalachian to go to off years on their rate renewal cases. So this year it's an emergency clause on it. If it gets passed by the Senate, which we hope it will, then it will allow Dominion to go 1 year, Appalachian to go the other, which really makes a lot of sense because the SEC, it puts a lot when they come in at the same time.
Right, that's the State Corporation Commission.
State Corporation Commission. And then what that will do is really there won't be any increase this year for Appalachian, and it very well may be not next year. If any, it'll be small because of some of the changes they're making in buying some gas-powered plants and things of this nature. It's going to hopefully reduce their need and hopefully reduce their costs. So next year things will look better, hopefully.
And I understand there's also some legislation dealing with incentives for renewable energy that cause rate increases as well. That's
right. Those have been done away with to some degree. That's a voluntary plan, but those renewable type bonuses have been incorporated into the regular base rate cases. And so that bill is a little convoluted when you start looking at it, but the whole idea is to through the Attorney General's efforts, and it's a compromise. It's not, everybody's not happy, so that means it's good.
Right.
And but it does get us to a point where we're not relying too heavily, and yet we still have some incentives there for green energy.
And I think you've been active as well in terms of voting issues. For example, absentee voting for seniors and the use of polling places. Talk to us a little bit about those.
Well, I had both of these bills came from people in the district, and where most bills come from. Somebody picks up the phone and calls you, and I would encourage the people watching this to do that, to call Don or I, and or either Stanley in the Senate, or either Poindexter. But the first bill would have allowed absentee voting for if you were 65 or older on the day of the election. Bill passed out of subcommittee, didn't get out of full committee, and so I showed the data to them, and I think I convinced the subcommittee that it was the reason was because the amount of seniors. We're getting more of them. I'm becoming one of them, and the amount of seniors, the numbers are as far as registered voters is pretty constant, but the number of percentage is going down.
So that would allow seniors without stating a reason or an excuse to vote absentee.
Yeah. So the only excuse you'd have to say is I'm 65, and then you'd vote absentee. The other bill was again from a constituent Parliament and the bill did not pass would have required the State Board of Elections not to use schools for voting precincts. And where this came from is the Sandy Hook tragedy up in Connecticut. That they said, what happened if that would have been, on election day, where people are not being screened when they go in those, but so many of the schools are closed on election day. So, and I think over 2/3 of the polling places in the state of Virginia use schools. Sure. So, State Board of Election just said it would just be too much on them to try to have to find so many other places to go vote.
And Delegate Merricks, I guess we know it's a real sign of the times when people are stealing a lot of scrap metal. Oh, yes. But I understand you have some legislation in on that.
Last year we talked about it, and Delegate Marshall and myself set up this little task force to start working on it. Bob Bushnell, who's the Commonwealth Attorney for Henry County, headed it up, working with scrap metal dealers, law enforcement, Commonwealth attorneys all across the state. I think I got as many emails on scrap metal as I did on uranium, to be honest with you. But we put a bill in, and it's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. What it does, it defines a scrap metal purchaser, and also defines a scrap metal dealer and an authorized scrap metal seller who's authorized to sell. And then it defines, it adds to the proprietary list items, certain items like manhole covers or things like that, bleacher seats, things that you pretty much know they're proprietary. And then what it does, it also on the non-ferrous metals, which are like copper and things like that, it requires a purchaser to take a photo of the item and hold it for 30 days. And then if the chief law enforcement officer of the locality requests it, there's a report that needs to be completed, which is going to be designed by the Virginia State Police, so it'll be a statewide uniform report. And hopefully they can shore up on some of these dealers that are taking these items, and we can help law enforcement try to catch some of this stuff and deter some of the theft.
Great. Understand that uranium is dead for this session. It appears at least, although some people suggest that the governor should still push forward with putting together a regulatory regime. How do you see that working out, Delegate Marshall?
Well, let's just, for the people back home, this show is the day after crossover, where all the bills from the House go to the Senate, all the Senate bills come to the House. And so as of today, this Wednesday, all the bills on uranium are dead. That does not mean that uranium is dead. So there could be a number of ways that this could happen. A bill could be amended and put on the House bill, that Senate bill that's in the House could be amended, or a House bill that's in the Senate could be amended, and put a language on there to move forward on the regulations. So we have to keep a vigilant eye on that. The last thing we had to look for was the budget, and the House budget and the Senate budget came out Sunday, and it appears that there's nothing in there for any language to move it forward in the budget. And as you mentioned, the governor, we're supposed to meet with him this week to make sure that he ask him to stay out of this. The legislative process worked. The bill that was before the Senate Agricultural Committee, Senator John Watkins, here from the Richmond area, put the bill forward. What we understand of that committee, there was 3 votes, and so the legislative process, worked. And so what we're asking the governor, who was a member of the General Assembly for 14 years, let's respect the legislative process. And if the bill, would have passed, that would be something else. But when it only got 3 votes, it was, you would think that maybe that would cast a pretty good, strong, indication of the will of the people. And if you look at the, especially like Danville, Pittsylvania County, all the members of the General Assembly, Don and I, and Senator Stanley and Senator Ruff, who represent Pittsylvania County, we are opposed to lifting the ban. The city council in Danville, were opposed to it. Pennsylvania County, the majority of the people of board of supervisors were opposed to it. The Chamber of Commerce in Danville, Pennsylvania County. It's just group after group after group. And we certainly understand the issue of jobs, but the problem is everything's got a risk, everything's got a reward. I think the risk far outweigh the rewards.
So those risks definitely outweighed the potential benefits.
Yes, I had encouraged the Governor's Working Group to do a study to show that the benefits they would receive over the years from the severance tax, if you net present value that back to today's dollars, and then you take the cost to implement this program with the number of people and all the inspections, and unfortunately with the tailings, to me that's a big hang-up.
That's what's left behind.
That's what's left behind. You got to look after this in perpetuity, and so I think if you net present all that value back, if there were any benefit, it would be minimal, and that's when you have to look at the risk and reward. But it does have a stigma. People can say, well, stigma doesn't exist. Studies have been done in other places. I can tell you of examples where people did not come to our area that even was offered a job because of this. And they say, well, I call that reality.
Sure.
So we just have to be realistic, and I think it gives some credibility to our take that all these groups that came out against it, we're not just out here whistling in the wind. We have genuine concerns, and so I'm thankful the system worked the way it did.
So there was a real risk that attracting businesses was going to become more difficult.
Well, I think so, and we first of all have in the locality, not probably 5-10 miles from where the crow flies, you have two private schools there, Chatham Hall and Hargrave Military School. And they were really concerned about what would happen with the potential of this uranium mine going. Would parents want to send their children to these schools? So that's an issue. The other issue is you have with manufacturing facilities, would they want to be downwind, downstream, that would get polluted air or polluted water from these locations. And so, on a small scale, my legislative assistant's husband was here in Richmond last week and was sitting at a table, and they were introducing themselves, and the fellow says, well, I'm from Pennsylvania County. Oh, you're from that area that's got the uranium in it. And so, it's just that little bit of a stigma that, plants in somebody's head that, we're trying to move the ball forward, and then you get this, which kind of is a real roadblock. So that's why we're all opposed to it, for a number of reasons, but that's one of the reasons. But really the health and safety is really the real issue.
And I might add that agriculture and forestry in Pennsylvania County is a huge industry. As it is, that's the number one and number two industry in the whole Commonwealth. But in Pennsylvania County, there's a report that's going to be coming out next month, well, maybe this month, that shows that industry in Pennsylvania County is a $1.2 billion a year industry.
1.2 billion.
Billion with a B, annually, with 7,200 jobs roughly. And so you have to take that in consideration. What effect would that have on that number one industry in the county? And you have to look at this, and if I knew the answer to all the questions, I'd be somewhere other than where I am. But you have to really take a step back and say, is this really the right thing to do? And in my mind, at this time, it's not the right thing to do.
So you have to remain vigilant throughout the remainder of this session. What about next year and the year thereafter?
I'm sure it's going to come back. There's too much money on the table not for it to come back. The folks at Virginia Uranium have some smart people on their side who are working this, not only inside the company, and if you walk the halls here in General Assembly, about every other person you walk past is a lobbyist for Virginia Uranium. So I'm sure it's going to come back in 14, and I think probably what they're going to look for is we have an election this coming November for all the members of the House.
Right.
So then you got in 15, then you'd have all the members of the Senate and the House, and so we don't know what they're going to move forward, but it would certainly be a surprise of me if they don't move forward in 2014.
Now you mentioned Route 58. I remember a delegate Kilgore telling me earlier that in order for him to go home, he has to take it through North Carolina and back up. Of course, transportation is a big issue. Here this year, you guys were able to pass a transportation bill out of the House. Apparently it's stalled in the Senate. Talk to us about what changes were made to the governor's proposal on transportation.
Well, there were very few changes, really. You know, his proposal does away with the gas tax. It increases the sales tax to 5.8%. Personally, I think in rural areas that's probably a benefit because we have to travel farther to where we're going, and we pay less for the gas. Now, there are those who think that the gas won't drop 17.5 cents a gallon if you drop the gas tax, and that may be true. So, but there was a tax, I think, or a fee on non-traditional cars like electric hybrids, and I think that has been modified, and there was an amendment put in about no tolling on 95 south of Fredericksburg, things like that. There are a lot of things, you know, some things you like, some things you don't like, and that's the way it is with anything. But the point is we have to start taking, we've tap danced around this hat for 6 years I've been up here, and we're still tap dancing really, except now we've got really something that we can move forward with, and the House, fortunately, has passed something that we can now hopefully get in the conference and work something out.
Now, understand the diesel fuel tax, at least for 16-wheelers, remains, but there may have been some modification for personal use of diesel vehicles as well.
I think that's one of the amendments we hear that's coming forward, that if you have a diesel car or a diesel vehicle that's less than 10,000 pounds, that you would be able to, I think you'd have to keep your receipts under current, the proposal I see coming is you have to keep your receipts and you have to turn those in, you can get that back. One of the amendments I have asked, and they tell me they're going to put on, is to start the engineering and right-of-way acquisition of I-73, and so where we and we've already got some money there. When Congressman Virgil Goode was in Congress and Robert Hurt was actually in the House, he and I got a match for the feds, and I think there's about $15 million in that fund. But it will start at the intersection of 58 and the bypass in Henry County and start going north towards the Patriot Park, and then going you know, with the right-of-way up towards up to Franklin County, and then also we're going to get the design built for there's an interchange at the Speedway, so that we can get traffic in and out of there. So hopefully that, by what I've been told, will be part of the transportation plan also.
Now, one of the other remaining items is a tax on internet retail online sales that's contingent upon action by your colleagues and friends up in Washington, D.C. And some people don't think that that's likely to happen because it's languished there for a number of years already.
Well, I talked to Congressman Hurt Sunday on the way up and asked him about that, and the bill goes before Congressman Bob Goodlatte's committee, you know, from Roanoke area. And he is the new chairman of this committee. That
I think it's the Judiciary Committee.
That's correct. Yes, sir. So hopefully that with Goodlatte head of the committee, and then you've got Eric Cantor, who is the majority leader, that we can get this forward. And to me, it just is, you know, for the voters back, people back home, what makes sense to me is, you know, if I buy this coat go to a bricks and mortar retail store, I got to pay sales tax. But if I buy it online, I don't pay sales tax. And I think it really puts a real disadvantage to the retailers that are in our communities, it's putting them at a competitive disadvantage. And I think it's just a real fairness issue that the retailers that are selling on the internet, you should have to pay sales tax.
Now, I take it the hope is that the increase in retail sales will make up for the loss of the 17.5 cent gasoline tax, and it will be a growing source of revenue.
That's exactly right. Gas tax is diminishing, and we all know that. And by 2015, I think that they say you're going to be getting 50 miles to the gallon, things of that nature. That's going to go down. What we're trying to do is tie transportation to a revenue source that's going to expand as the economy expands. And to me, it makes perfect sense. Now, there's some who argue other ways, but the reality is you have to look at reality again, look at the trend. Sure. And when you look at the trend line, the gas tax is not sustainable.
Let's turn.
And one other thing, Chris, I get these emails that say, "Well, people, you need to cut cut the fat out of government," and I think that they tie Virginia to what they see in Washington. Right. For the people back home, the budget when Governor McDonald came in, he was handed a pretty tough budget by the preceding governor. But the budget right now is actually about 6% less than the 2008 budget, and so the budget in Virginia has been whittled down and really cut. And as far as gas tax, the money that when you and I fill up your car, that 17.5 cents goes into Transportation Trust Fund. That money is set up so the first dollars are spent for maintenance, and so to maintain our road. The state of Virginia has the third most number of roads in the nation. So we got a lot of roads to maintain, and the experts will tell us that in just about 3 or 4 years that all of the money will go just to maintenance. We won't have any money for any type of new transportation. So that's why this is critical to move us forward.
A couple of minutes remaining. I want to talk a little bit about education. The governor has a number of proposals, K through 12, including raises for teachers and other personnel, but also reforming teacher contracts.
Yes. Those bills have passed out of the House, and it's so important. And I got emails from home regarding, especially the one where setting up this state would take over troubled schools. Right. And I think you've given them an opportunity. Academia is a different world, and now you start messing with academia, and everybody tries to protect their little turf, and I can understand that. But we have some real problems, and fortunately not in my area. We have great schools in my area, but in some areas they have some really big problems. So I think it's a step in the right direction in grading the schools so a parent can understand what an A and a B and a C and a D, and they understand that. All this language about accredited with warning or part, they don't understand that, and so I think it's a step in the right direction.
Last 30 seconds for you, Delegate.
Well, I would agree. Also, I think that ultimately what it's about is those people, the young students in school. We've got to make sure that we educate them so that when they graduate from high school, if they go into college, go into business, that we want to make sure that our people have the skills so that we can attract those companies.
Great. Well, thank you for being here, Delegate Don Merricks, Delegate Danny Marshall. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Comcast. Until next time, I am Woody Evans. Mm-hmm.